God, the all-provident, earth by thy chastening, yet shall to freedom and truth be restored. Through the thick darkness, thy kingdom is hastening. Thou wilt give peace in thy time, O Lord.
Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. Welcome once again to the Lenten weekly program of Trinity Episcopal Church in Asheville, North Carolina, titled Faith in the 828, 828 being our area code. The purpose of our program during this Lenten season is to have informal conversations that help us grow in our life and our faith. And this year, we are focusing on the whole overarching idea of having difficult conversations with each other. We all know that that is a prevalent piece of our life together in culture. At this time, it's true in politics, it's true in church, it's true in our families. And today I have the great pleasure of welcoming Tom Daly, who's involved with an organization called Braver Angels. And I'm going to let Tom tell us a little bit about let him really focus on talking about the organization. The interest that brought us to this conversation today is that Braver Angels focuses on helping individuals from different political philosophies come together and have meaningful conversations. And we all know how important that is. We have started this series with learning about nonviolent communication, having conversations within our families, having conversations in political life. And I'm just so thankful, Tom, that you're with us today so that we can explore a little bit more about the tools that are at our disposal for having conversations across what I'm calling, you may have a different title for it, a political difference, if you will. So welcome. Thank you for being here. Do you mind just introducing yourself?
Sure. First of all, a little bit about my background, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. My parents were missionaries in Cuba and Dominican Republic. So I grew up in Cuba and the Dominican Republic and lived in New York City. And my parents had a lot of influence on me, having a sensitivity toward the marginalized, having a responsibility for those people and trying to live in peace in the midst of revolutions. So that certainly affected me in my career in the ministry for 30 years. And then I also spent 15 years as a financial advisor. I was over the years involved in Witness for Peace and was even the treasurer of the Peace and Justice Network of the National Church. So that's a little bit about myself. And now I lived in Deerfield here in Asheville.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you. You remind me, I didn't mention it right out of the gate, but the title of our series is called Peace in Our Time, which, Tom, you know that great hymn of the church, God the Omnipotent, which ends in that great refrain, give to us peace in our time, O Lord. So thank you for your years of work in building peace. And another motivation for our series is the Christian call to be peacemakers, that peace doesn't just happen because we hope it happens. When we pray for peace, we're also praying for God to infuse us with the way to be peacemakers. So thank you so much. Well, Tom, I know you're involved with the organization called Braver Angels. And I think I read somewhere in its history, not just that history is the only thing that's important, that there were some Episcopalians involved in even starting this organization. So just tell us a bit about Braver Angels, its goal, what it's about, how you be.
Sure. Well, it began in December of 2016 with the first workshop in South Lebanon, Ohio, bringing in 10 Trump supporters and 11 Clinton supporters in what came to be called a red-blue workshop. It began when co-founders David Blankenhorn, Bill Dowdy, and David Latt met to see if something could be done about the polarization that they were seeing in their own communities. So the workshops have all been designed by Bill Daughtry, who's a professor and director of the Minnesota Couples on the Brink Project in the Department of Family Social Science at the University of Minnesota. It calls on people to be civil, to learn to listen, to learn how to share their own views. And it gives permission to speak frankly and strongly, but stressing the need to accept others where they are. So we all take a pledge to try to understand the other side's point of view, even if we don't agree with it. In our communities, we look for common ground and ways to work together. And in politics, we support principles that bring us together rather than divides us. So it was originally called Better Angels, but we changed it to Braver Angels, for it takes courage to take this step, to reach out to those with whom we sometimes even bitterly disagree with. So I became involved when I attended the debate at UNC Asheville and heard the frank exchange of ideas without yelling. I was drawn into it because I thought it important to help facilitate this kind of communication here where I lived at Deerfield. And then I slowly became involved at the national level. So we have
Don't tell me that there's don't tell me there's disagreement at Deerfield.
Oh, yes, sometimes. Yes. So we've actually had 2 workshops here at Deerfield and one in the diocese already. We have now organized about a month ago a Western North Carolina Braver Angels Alliance. They will bring people together from opposing sides, not only to organize and sponsor workshop, but have discussions on the current local and national topics. In fact, we had one on schools reopening, and the next one on March 14th will be on the minimum wage.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting. Neat. So the organization really works intentionally to bring people together from different points of view. Often, I'm sure you can describe that as the 2 political parties, but that's probably not always the case. I'm sure that you experience individuals who in one public policy idea are on one side, and in another public policy idea are on another side.
Yes, in fact, we have a lot of people who describe themselves as purple, right in the middle.
Yeah,
and of course, that's part of it. But for this organization and for our discussions, we sometimes, not in every program, but in sometimes we ask them to choose one side or the other, whichever way they're leaning that day. A little bit about the programs.
Yes,
the first
please.
programs were actually debates, and we'll still have national debates on Zoom almost every week. In fact, last night we had one with 1,500 people on it. And you can find them on the Braver Angels website, which is, by the way, a plug, braverangels.org. We have two kinds of programs. One has to do with skills, teaching skills. And the first program that we have is Skills for Bridging the Divide, which helps prepare one for difficult conversations, learning to talk across the political divide. The second one is Depolarizing Within, where we look at ourselves, our tribe, and develop strategies for engaging in conversations without demonizing the other side. In other words, how to talk and intervene in social conversation with those on our own sides. And then the third one, having to do with skills, is Family and Politics, how to talk politics with loved ones, helping us to come closer together. And then on the larger scale, we have workshops, the Red Blue, which has small, evenly divided groups of conservatives and liberals, reds and blues. And we go through a series of exercises that help clarify disagreements, reduce stereotyping, and discover common values. And I'm very excited that coming soon, we're going to have a workshop called Common Ground, a way of digging deeper into specific issues. And the last one is Race Conversations, talking about race in an inquisitive, non-judgmental, safe way.
Wow. I can't think of too many organizations that are helping bring about these types of conversations. And I find it deeply moving and powerful because as the folks at Trinity know, I happen to believe there's a lot. Every day the media tagline is how divided the country is, and I'm not going to pretend that there isn't disagreement, of course, or there wouldn't be a need for a braver angels. But as you described, people calling themselves purple, I happen to believe there's a heck of a lot more people like that than the way in which we evaluate ideas in a greater sense actually lets shine through. Do you find that in your workshops?
Well, I think we are a polarized nation on many levels.
Yeah.
Socially, economically, politically, in our families. And yet we seem to be unable to come together. And I think this is tragic.
Mm-hmm.
We have so much to live for,
Yeah.
and we seem unable to solve problems because we can't talk with each other. We must learn to do so in a peaceful way. So I think it's important because how else are we going to find our better angels? Which, by the way, is taken from Abraham Lincoln's inaugural address, calling on Americans to find the courage to pursue a more perfect union with malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right. But yes, a lot of people are right in the middle. They're purple, and yet on different issues, they're on one side or the other.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that I do find a lot of people who are on different issues, like one side or the other. And I mean, it's not that they don't have a preference, but I do find, I venture to guess that one of the tools that Braver Angels is suggesting people employ is the tool of like withholding judgment, that just because somebody may be a registered Democrat or Republican, you might be surprised that that in every policy issue, they may not have this, the party line, so to say. They may think more deeply or more broadly or cross party lines. Even though in our national, as we heard from Representative Susan Fisher last week, that the parties make it very difficult for our elected representatives. As we're watching right this moment today, the Senate debate a COVID relief bill, and not one person has crossed a party line. The idea that someone in that Senate doesn't think there's room for compromise, that the parties are forcing them into corners, that's I guess what I struggle with is that we then think that that's what's going on, in every room that we walk into, that everybody's on the opposite, side. And it's just not the case. Learning how to have these conversations to discover that is just so needed.
Absolutely. And in fact, one of the tenets of Braver Angels is that you give up the wanting to convince somebody else to change their mind. In other words, you accept the fact that you are not there well, we're not here when we talk with each other. We're not here to get you to change their mind, because a lot of conversations are headed in that direction. We accept the fact that
Yeah.
you are where you are, and we just simply want to share our views with each other. So once
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
accept that,
Yeah.
there's a lot of the rancor that is taken away from that.
Yeah. And I would describe that as actually being a tool of building peace.
Yes.
You know, I mean, this is a, you know, building peace that, yeah, yeah. Um, um, tell us, how people can be involved. Actually, I'm curious myself. You know, you said you've had one workshop in the diocese. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it was sponsored actually by one of the parishes in the diocese in the western part of North Carolina, I think in Waynesville. And we invited people from all over
Sure.
the diocese to be involved in that. And that was the one, Skills for Bridging the Divide. But, you know, I think Braver Angels really does make a difference.
Yeah,
I personally have been
tell me how
affected
you
by,
see it making a difference.
yeah, I've been affected personally by Braver Angels. I've met hundreds of people across the US, granted via Zoom, and they have become my friends. And some of them are diametrically
Mm,
opposed to my own views. So I've changed
sure.
my own way of dealing with others. I hope I have become less judgmental and more accepting of where people are coming from. And I've learned by them sharing with me their views that they are not bad people or they're not stupid people at all, but they just have a different point of view. And most of us, we realize, have gotten to our point of view because of the experiences that we have had. That's certainly the case in my case.
Yeah.
But the testimony that we
Yeah.
receive, the feedback that we get after a workshop really bears proof to the changes in people's lives. Whereas at one point they were in despair, seeing others only as enemies and fearing the future, they're now expressing hope and seeing those values that they have in common. For example, the other night I heard a woman describe almost in tears the feeling that she experienced to be able to talk with others who understood how she felt. She felt
Yeah.
very isolated and didn't have anybody around her where she lived that could understand that. And yet this was an opportunity for her to feel included. And a man who said he was heartbroken over the fights in his own family and that finally he could talk with his sister over politics. Before that, they had been unable to communicate. So that's why I'm very excited that here in Western North Carolina, we have formed this alliance made up of Reds and Blues who are beginning to share in a civil way differences that they have, and more importantly, things that they have in common. So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. That's very hopeful. That you can almost, I feel my spirit just changing as you're describing how the outcome of these workshops that you're having. You said something that speaks to me and reminds me of the conversation we had at the outset of this series with Roberta Wall. One of the mottos she left us with is a principle of nonviolent communication is connect before you correct. And so I hear you describing that, you know, that your workshops, the workshops of Braver Angels, are about connecting with each other before we reach out to kind of tell someone how they need to correct themselves. And the other piece that she mentions that I hear you speaking of also is one of the principles of nonviolent communication is that our disagreements are not at the level of our needs. They're at the level of the strategies we employ to meet those needs. And so when you say, you know, what are the common things we hold together, I hear that coming through, and I hear the workshops that your Braver Angels is leading, helping people kind of find what are our common cares and concerns, because you know, whatever political issue you bring up, when you ask questions differently, you find people have common needs and cares. Do you find that in the workshops?
Absolutely. It, most importantly is people begin to listen to each other. And every
Yeah.
person has a story behind them, an experience that led them to where they are now. And unless we learn to hear what that is and where they're coming from, we won't be able to bridge the divide. You know,
Yeah.
peace, in my view, is not just the absence of violence. It's at the very heart of love, the cornerstone of living
Yeah.
lives that bring us together. And when those who differ from each other can come together and talk and share their lives and solve common problems, that really brings peace to us all. Um, I did want to put in a plug is if people are interested
Please.
more of this,
Yeah.
go to the website braverangels.org and sign up as a member. It's $12 a year, and then get involved, attend
Yeah.
some debates, some workshops, and they're all listed there. And if anybody has any questions, they can always call me.
Yeah. Wonderful. Tom, thank you so much. I think you might agree also that uh, this way of conversation is needed just as much in sometimes in our family church communities as others. Of course, there are some religious communities that are so homogeneous you wouldn't think you need these conversations, but most really we're living, it's like our personal families, and
Yep.
and no two people are have the same experience. They see it differently, and so I really am hopeful and prayerful that we continue to grow in having conversations that do just what you're talking about, is before we judge each other on the perspective that they hold, that we ask about what are those common needs and concerns.
Yeah, we don't want everybody to be the same. Our diversity is our strength,
Right.
but we want
Yeah.
to be able to talk about our differences and bring that diversity strength to bear on solving issues and sharing who we are with each other.
Yeah. The other piece that impresses me about the Braver Angels workshops is nobody's maybe you can say a few words about this. The workshops, just as you already have, the workshops are not designed to make you less passionate about the policies that you're passionate about.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people are afraid, that nonviolent communication or workshops like Braver Angels puts together will take away their passion. I'm passionate about seeing justice in this situation. I want justice to come into this situation, and if I partake in these conversations, I'm giving up my passion.
Absolutely. We want people to be exactly who they are. In fact, at the debates, one of the things we say is, we don't want you to come representing a paper that has been written or views about a group. We want to hear exactly what you think. And in our workshops, we encourage people to say exactly what they think and what they feel. And that's the only way that we can be true to ourselves and really get to know each other. We don't try to change people's views, but we want to know how they think and how they feel.
Yeah. Well, I'll kind of end with that reassertion, if you will, because I do think that there is somewhat of a fear for some of us in entering conversations, either in nonviolent communication tools, or the tools that Braver Angels is hoping and working to develop. that somehow they really need to give up their passions and their
Yeah.
care for the justice they want to see come about. And I would argue that justice rarely comes about through shaming each other. It comes about through understanding each other more deeply. So
Exactly.
well,
Yeah.
Tom, I'm really very thankful for your time with us today, because I think this has given us another broader, and I pray hopeful information about our world, our life, the state of our politics, the state of our conversations, that there is hope, that there are ways for us to be people of grace and peace and justice together. And it really is, as we say, as the title of our series is, how is it that we can be people of peace in our time? And so if people want to be more involved, they can go to the Braver Angels website and become a member, and also partake in the workshops themselves, right? They're happening virtually, correct?
That's true. Right now, we're all on Zoom, and we have over 10,000 members, and most of the people who work with Braver Angels are all volunteers. We have a few people
Great.
at the top who are paid, I think about 10, but everybody else, and we have hundreds of volunteers across the country that put on these workshops, because it takes about 5 or 6 people to put on a workshop on Zoom.
Great. Well, maybe we'll initiate hosting a workshop. So
That'd be great.
And for those of you watching, let me know that you want to be a part of that, and we'll consider what is the right way to move forward.
And thank
once
you,
again,
Scott.
Tom, thank you so much. And yeah, brothers and sisters, thank you for being with us today as we continue our conversations about being a people of peace in this time. May God bless you. I look forward to seeing you next week. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord. Thanks be to God.